Hello, good morning, everyone joining us today. Welcome to our webinar on Introduction to Instant Bots for Developers. I'm Satya Sekhar, Trailhead Developer at Salesforce, and I'll be your host for today. We are joined by our special guest from community, Shruti Sridharan, who is going to present her content. We might be making some forward-looking statements about features during this webinar, which may be in beta or may not be generally available on the platform. So please make any of your purchase decisions based on what are generally available on the platform. You can tweet us at Salesforce Devs, and you can connect with other awesome developers through our social channels. You can also follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find more awesome webinars and videos on our YouTube channel as Salesforce developers. Feel free to check them out. Let me also remind you that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available to you, including the slides of the presentation, in few days. Before going forward, I want to cover a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. You're all muted, but you need not wait to ask your questions. You can post your questions in the questions tab of the GoToWebinar window. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible during the webinar and also in our Q&A session during the end of the webinar. In case we did not get to your question, you can head to our developer forums to post more questions at developer.salesforce.com/forums. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Today, we are going to play a kind of role play where I am a novice developer intrigued to learn about Einstein Bots and its development. Shruti is a seasoned developer who is more familiar with the Einstein Bots. Shruti is going to help me learn about Einstein Bots and its development. With that said, I would like to hand over to Shruti to take us through the agenda for today's webinar and also give some introduction. Hi, Shruti.
Hi, Satya. Thank you, Satya. So, I'm Shruti Sridharan. I work as a Salesforce developer and I hail from Kerala. I have spoken at multiple conferences and webinars, and I also lead the student and the WIT user groups in Kerala. You can find me on Twitter at Shruti4Chess and reach out to me on my website, that is shrutisridharan.com.
Wow, you like chess most, Shruti?
Yeah, kind of.
That's great to hear. Yeah.
So, what do we have for today? We will explore what's all the hype about Einstein bots. We will learn what are the prerequisites for building a bot. Then we will look at different parts of the bot, and then the exciting part, hands-on. In this, we will learn how we can extend the capabilities of a bot using Apex and Intent. And finally, some points to remember, and we will wrap it up.
Hey, Shruti, I'm overwhelmed by the term instant bots. What are these instant bots? Are they just chatbots which are used in the service cloud, or are they something beyond that? Can you explain me more about instant bots?
Yes, so Einstein bots are simply your chatbots on steroids that the Salesforce offers. And guess what? You can build these in Salesforce without writing even a single line of code. Hang on, I would also like to show you what our leaders say about these Einstein bots or the so-called chatbots. I would say that I'm pretty sure that down the line, every site with an online support will soon start harnessing the power of chatbots. So, in simple words, Einstein Bot is nothing but a chatbot. It's designed to take care of customers when an agent couldn't make it. You know what? We don't really require a human agent for simple use cases like tracking the status of an order or maybe canceling an order. The agent should really focus on more complex queries. And this is where chatbots come into play. So they are built to support the human agents so that by the time the agent takes over the case, he or she already has a good context of the situation.
So it's going to make some initiation of the discussion with the customer, right? So
Yes.
yeah, at least by the time the agent starts, he'll be having the necessary information for him to deal with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And most importantly, Einstein bots are powered by Salesforce's very own AI tool. Well, yes, you do have some prerequisites that needs to be met, and we'll be exploring the same in the next slide.
Oh, so I need to learn few things before starting with the Einstein bots, is it? So that fine.
Yes.
So let us go through. Yeah.
Now, how can I build an Einstein bot in one of my orgs? First thing first, you need to be on the summer 18 or above. Then the next most important thing is the Service Cloud license. It's important to remember that Einstein bots are a part of the Service Cloud. It's actually an extension of the Live Agent feature. And last but not the least, you can build bots only in Lightning experience.
Oh, got it, got it. Is it like generally available from summer 18 onwards?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But before I start, do I need to be well versed with any of the terminology that is most common to Einstein bots, Shruti?
Yes, like every new feature, we do have some new terms that we need to be familiar with. So let me show them in the next slide. Now, we have a bit of terminologies that we need to know before we dive deep. So let's explore the three main things, that is the dialogues, entities, and slots.
Oh, so these are the three main terminology that we need to know, is it?
Yes. So let's look at dialogue. I'm certain you all might have guessed what a dialogue is. Yes, a basic unit of conversation. Think of it like a contextual talk happening between you and the bot. It can be a message, a question, an action, or even a rule. So let's look at each one of them. An example of a message is, say, "Hello, I'm an Uber bot here. How may I help you?" It could be a greeting or a plain text conveying a message to the user. An example of a question is, say, assume that you are talking to the weather bot, which can tell you the weather in cities. So the first thing that the bot would need to know would be, which city are you from? So that's a question. All right. So let's see what actions are used for. In the same example of a weather bot, after you receive the city from the user, you would need to look into a database or maybe query a bunch of records or maybe even do an API call to get the weather in that city.
Oh,
And this is where an action comes into picture. It's used when you want to invoke maybe a piece of Apex code. And I absolutely love this part of it. And the last is rules. Now, what if you wanted to ensure that the user isn't making a fool out of you? What if he or she wrote a burger when the bot asked for the city? And yes, so this is where you can use rules to validate your inputs.
Oh, so if I don't define the rules properly, so it may ruin the things for me, is it? So
Yes, sometimes.
yeah. So we have this message, question, apex, and these or whatever actions which you can write in apex. So these are all the parts of the dialogue. So dialogue can be any of these four things, is it?
Yeah, it could be some invoking an apex or making an API call, querying, anything.
Nice knowing that. Yeah.
So now let's get down deeper. The next integral part of a bot is a slot. In simple words, it's a variable to store the answers to the questions that the bot had asked. In fact, in Winter 19, it will be renamed as variables.
Oh,
So,
that's good. That's
yeah.
good. So earlier it used to be called as slots, and now it's going to be renamed as variables.
Yes, safe
Oh.
harbor. So in the previous slide, we saw a question like, which city are you from? And in this case, we use a slot to store the answer from the user. And not only can slots be used to store data, but you can use the familiar merge syntax, as you can see on the screen, in messages to interpolate slot data.
Oh. So we can access the slot data using the merge syntax.
Yes,
there.
yes.
Oh.
Now, what is an entity? So think of an entity as a bucket of slots. I mean, to group all these slots together. A slot gets assigned to an entity so that the system knows how to handle the slot input or output.
I cannot resist myself seeing it in action, Shruti.
You seem to be one of those curious kind. Well,
yeah.
I think I have to break this suspense then. Yes, we are building one. So hang tight, you'll be amazed for sure. All right, so let's build one. So a use case is a foodie bot called the Adisia bot. Using this bot, you can find a restaurant of your own choice. Now, how this is going to be possible? It's with the help of bots, of course, then the Einstein intent and the Zomato APIs.
Oh, so you're going to build a bot which is, in fact, in my lines, because you know what? I'm a frequent traveler, so I love traveling, and wherever I go to whichever city, I always find it hard to find the very good restaurants. So I always go through some service clouds where I can get some information about the restaurants in that city. So your use case probably is going to help me out. Yeah, thank you, Shruti.
Yes, Satya. So let's see it in action. So here I am on the setup page and on the Einstein Bots page. So here I have my Adisia bot ready. So I click on the version 1, which would open up to the Einstein bot builder. And here I go to the dialog section. And here you can see that the preview and the deactivate button are active over here. It becomes active only when the bot is active. So now I click on the preview button and I select a snap-in and click submit. And here I get a button that is chat with an expert. So I click on that.
Okay, so you are showing me a bot which is already built. Okay, is it named as Edisha?
Yes.
So Fine. So probably, are you going to show me the code, Shruti, later once this demo is done?
Yes, exactly. I will show you how we can build this on
Thank you
your
so
own.
much.
So this opens up to a pre-chat window, and here I enter my details and finally click on start chatting. And clicking on the start chatting button, the bot now greets us with a welcome message saying, "Hello, I'm an Alicia bot, so how can I help you today?" So the bot is asking what it needs to do for us. So now I want to find a restaurant. So I'm typing find restaurant. So now the bot has figured the user's input to be find a restaurant, and hence it has redirected to the find a restaurant dialog automatically just by looking at the context of the user's entered text. This is done with Salesforce's very own intent APIs.
Oh, so I can see something called Snap in there when you started the preview mode. So can you just tell me a bit about Snap in, Shruti?
Yes, Satya. So Snap-in is a new feature recently introduced by Salesforce. So it's like you can integrate your chat into your website, the pop kind of chats, like you
Oh,
see here.
okay.
Uh, so now the bot is asking us for a city. So now I'm in Hyderabad.
So, and you were also telling something about intent. What is this intent like? So, how is it going to be useful while we are developing the instant bots?
So it's just because of intent. When the user entered some text, it automatically the bot figured out what it has to be done. I needn't specify like, okay, it's find a restaurant. So go to the find a restaurant dialog, or maybe it's find a restaurant query or find restaurant review. So go to find a restaurant review. Nothing like that. But it's not like string match or anything. Okay. But we are using intent APIs to find the context of the text.
Okay, so you are going to train some artificial intelligence model there, and from there it's going to get the information. Is it like that?
Exactly. I'll show you how I'm doing that.
Okay.
So here I have entered Hyderabad, and now it has made an API call to the location endpoint provided by the Zomato APIs, and it has fetched all the available cuisines in the Hyderabad city. So now maybe let me select biryani.
Yeah, because that's my favorite recipe from Hyderabad.
Okay. So here I've selected biryani. So when I select biryani, again an API call is made to the restaurants endpoint, and it fetches all the available restaurants in Hyderabad which serve biryani to us. So, and it's displayed to us as options here. So these are the restaurants that serve biryani in Hyderabad. And now maybe let me select a restaurant over here. Say we are selecting Trips in the restaurant. So once we have selected the restaurant, again, one more call is made to get the location of the restaurant that we selected, and it's displayed to the users.
Oh, it's highly interactive.
Yes, so here you get the restaurant of your, I'm sorry, the location or the address of your restaurant.
Oh, probably I'll try it after the webinar, so and eat there.
All right, so now let's build one from the scratch. So I'm going to the Einstein Bots section, which can be accessed by typing the word Einstein Bots in the setup menu. And now I click on the new button, and which pops up to a modal to create a new Einstein bot. And here I'm clicking next, and as the Adicia bot name, I'm sorry, as the Einstein bot name, I'm giving maybe Adicia demo. And I click on next, and it's asking us for the greeting message. That's the welcome message. So let me type some welcome message. Hello, I'm Adicia bot. How may I help you? And now I'm clicking on next. So for now, I'm not defining any menu items.
So what are these menu items, Shruti? Is it a set of choices for the user to select from?
No, these are like different sections that you might wanna define, or like different menus that you can define in your bot.
Okay.
Like maybe find a restaurant.
Yeah, got it.
And now I'm clicking on create. And finally, after it's ready, I'm clicking on the finish button. So here's my Edicia demo bot ready. So the first thing that I will do here is create a dialog. So here there are few dialogues that are actually not required for us. So let me just go ahead and delete them to avoid confusions. And here I have my welcome dialog. So here's my welcome message. And here as the next step, I'm not manually redirecting to any dialog, but I'm as the next step, I'm selecting wait for customer input.
Okay.
And finally saving it. Now I'm going ahead and creating a new dialog called find a restaurant, and finally clicking the save button. So my find restaurant dialog is ready. So let me start building it now. So the first step will be a message. Let me display some message to the users first. So, all right. So you want to find a restaurant. Yes. Now let me get the city from the user. So for that, I'm using a question and typing, could you please tell me your city? And for this, I'm creating a new slot to collect the value the users have entered, which is nothing but the city. So let me name it as city itself, and the entity type will be text.
Oh, so that is the data type, and that's like a variable where we are going to
Yes.
store the input information entered by the user, is it?
Yes, exactly. It acts like a variable to store values.
Right.
And here the choice will be static. And next step will be
So can you hold here, Shruti? Like I have, when you click on this plus mark,
yes.
I can see that you can create message, question, action rules, what we have discussed during our
Yes,
presentation.
exactly.
Okay, so we are creating a kind of interaction with the user as a
Yes,
dialogue,
so
and whatever choice you want to select, you can select it from there. Is it?
Yeah, so I'm using a combination of maybe message, question, actions, everything to interact with the users.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, as the next thing, I'm creating an action um, which would invoke the Zomato find location Apex class. And as you can see, we have one input parameter that is a location. So we should be entering the location that we had collected just before in a slot. So I'm passing the city value in the location string parameter.
Oh.
And as output, I'm creating a new slot called request ID of type text and storing the value output value in the request ID slot. Don't worry, I'll be explaining the class so you will get to know what I'm receiving and passing from my method. So let's go back to the Zomato find location class. So here's my Zomato find location class, and as you can see, I have an invocable method defined in this class, which is named as locate. Why invocable method? Because from Einstein Bots, we can only call methods or classes which have an at invocable method annotated method.
Oh, it's just like at Aura enabled for Lightning, is it?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
So as you can see that now I'm calling the locate method from the Zomato API class. So let's go to our Zomato API class.
Shruti, is this Zomato API class implemented by you, or else is it any pre-existing class?
No, I wrote the code for Zomato API. I'll explain like what is being done here.
Oh.
So first, as a developer to use the Zomato APIs, I had to sign up for a developer account in Zomato. So, and that's how I got the user key with which I can make the API calls. So, this will be unique to every user. And then I have the host defined, the host of all the endpoints defined in Zomato APIs. Then you can see that I have a private method called build request. So what it does is nothing but it just creates an instance of the HTTP request class and it returns the same.
Okay.
So here comes our locate method. As you can see, it's receiving a string parameter location, which will be nothing but the selected city of the user.
Okay. So you're invoking the Zomato API using the HTTP protocol, is it? HTTP request and response mode.
Yes, yes. So then in this method, I'm doing an API call to the location endpoint defined by in the Zomato APIs with the location. And the response, which will be a JSON, and then deserializing it and storing all the details that have got in the response in a new opportunity variable, in a new opportunity record.
Oh.
You can see that I have collected entity ID, entity type, city ID, everything in my opportunity record which I'm creating. So why I'm collecting this is because I'll be using this later to make other API calls.
Oh. So you're using an opportunity object here to store that information, and then you're going to reuse it.
Yes.
That's great.
And finally, after creating the opportunity, I'm returning the opportunity ID back. And that is what is being collected in the request ID slot that I created here. So now, once this action is ready, the next one is also again an action, which would call the Zomato find cuisines class. And as you can see here, again we have input parameter req id, which is nothing but the request id that we had collected before, and which is again nothing but the opportunity id. And as the output also, I'm collecting the request id itself.
Okay, so you're going to use the same opportunity object again and again. So you are taking the request ID as the input parameter and also returning it.
Yes, because I want several details that I have stored in my opportunity record, like the entity type, entity ID, data. So I'm passing the opportunity ID.
Right. So first you have created defined location action, and then now you are creating find cuisines action.
Yes.
Oh,
So now let's have a look at Zomato Find Cuisines class. So this is again like the previous class that I'd shown, Zomato Find Location. And in this we are invoking the Find Cuisines method that is defined in our Zomato API class. So here we have the Zomato Find Cuisines method. It will receive the REQ ID, which is nothing but your opportunity ID. And once received, it will query for the opportunity record, and then an API call is made to the cuisine endpoint with the city ID, and then the response that we are getting, the JSON response, we are deserializing it, and finally collecting all the available cuisines for that city and creating it as records in a new custom object called available cuisine, which is child to our opportunity object.
oh,
So all the available cuisines in that particular city will be stored as different records in available cuisine custom object.
so it's like we are storing the location information in the opportunity record, and then in its child record we are storing the information about all the available cuisines in that particular location. Is it?
Yes, kind of. Available
Yeah.
cuisine is the child of the opportunity.
Okay.
And then finally, after I have created all the available cuisine records, I'm returning the opportunity ID itself. So now let's get back to our class. And again, next one will be we are asking a question to the user, which will be, can you please select a cuisine? And here I am creating a new slot now called selected cuisine name. And the type will be text. And finally, I'm saving it. And one thing that you will have to note here is it's dynamic.
Oh,
The choices are dynamic. And in the action, I'll be calling the Zomato get cuisines class. And as the input parameter, I'm again passing the request ID slot, which is nothing but the opportunity ID itself. Now let's have a look at the Zomato get cuisines class. And here we have the Zomato get cuisines class, which is also similar to the previous class. And I'm calling the get cuisines method defined in my Zomato API class. So let's have a look at it.
I have a quick question here, Shruti. You have selected dynamic in questions, right? What is this choice static and dynamic in questions? Basically, what is it?
Yes, as you had noticed above, I was actually collecting all the cuisines as records in my available cuisine object. So, and it is that values that I am now displaying it to the users. So it actually varies depending on different cities, and hence this time I'm giving dynamic.
Oh, okay.
So now let's get back to our Apex code. So let's have a look at the Zomato get cuisines method defined. So it will receive the request ID or the opportunity ID as the input parameter. It would then query for all the available cuisines, and once it gets all the cuisines, it will again add it as a list and then return this list back to the bot so that it can display all the available cuisines as options to the users.
Oh.
Yes, so that's about get cuisines method. Now let's get back to our bot builder. So
So this get cuisines is returning a list of records which are showing it as a dynamic choices, and the user can pick one of the cuisines from there.
yes, and now I'm also defining a rule action over here, say call dialog, and I'm creating a new dialog here called no cuisines available, and finally saving it.
Oh, so you want to display this error information if the cuisines are not found in the particular location.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great.
And finally, after it is done, the next step is again to create an action which would call the Zomato Save Cuisines class. And here, as you can see, there are two parameters that I'm returning. One is the cuisine name, and the other one is nothing but the request ID or the opportunity. So, as the cuisine name, I am passing the selected cuisine name, which would slot which would contain the user selected cuisine. And in my REQ ID, I'm passing the request ID, which is nothing but the opportunity IDs. And again, as the output, I am collecting the request ID itself. Now let's have a look at Zomato Save Cuisines class. So here's the Zomato Save Cuisines class. And it's just like our previous class, which would have an @invocable method, and it would again call the save selected cuisine method in the Zomato API. So let's go back to our Zomato API now. And here's our save selected cuisine method. And as you can see, it is receiving two parameters that we had passed, that is the selected cuisine name and the request ID. And based on that, it is querying all the cuisine name from the available cuisine object, which is the child of the opportunity. And after it gets all the available cuisines, it is checking whether the user selected or user entered value of cuisine is available in the available cuisines custom object.
Okay.
And if yes, then we break it and finally save the cuisine ID of that particular cuisine in the opportunity record. And finally, update the opportunity. So now let's go back to our bot. And once that is done, the next step will be to show a message to the users, which would say, all right, finding the restaurants. Please wait. And again, now I'm adding a question which would say, here are your restaurants. And finally, here I am creating a new slot called selected restaurant to store the restaurant which the user selects.
Oh, that's where I was wondering why you are creating a question there. Now I understand. You wanted to say the selected restaurant.
Okay, and again, this will be dynamic choice, and the action will be Zomato find restaurants. And as the input parameter, I am passing nothing but our request ID, that is the opportunity ID. So let's have a look at Zomato find restaurants class. So here's my Zomato find restaurants class, and it's again same like the other classes, and I'm calling the find restaurant method defined in Zomato API. So here's my find restaurant method in the Zomato API, and it's receiving the request ID, that is the opportunity ID, and then it's querying the opportunity object to get all the saved details like the entity ID, entity type, cuisine ID, because we need all this to make another API call to get the restaurant details.
Okay.
And here I'm making that API call, and when I get the response, JSON response is being deserialized, and then all the restaurants that are obtained for that cuisine and for that particular city, all of them are then saved as new records in our custom object, a new custom object called restaurant found, which is again nothing but the child to the opportunity record. Sorry, opportunity object. And finally, after it has created all the new records for new restaurants in the custom object restaurant found, it's returning the list of restaurant names, so that now we can display it to the users so that they can select it from. And in the error, I am now selecting the redirect to a dialog, and now creating a new dialog called no restaurants found.
Oh, so if the restaurants are not found, we are going to redirect the user to a new dialog.
Exactly.
Okay.
And finally, when this is ready, I am again now creating a new action which would invoke the Zomato save restaurant, which is an Apex class. And here again, we are passing two input parameters. REQID is nothing but the request ID again, and the restaurant name, which is nothing but the selected restaurant by the user. And as the output parameter, I'm again collecting the opportunity ID or the request ID slot. Now let's have a look at Zomato Save Restaurant. Here's our Zomato Save Restaurant Apex class, which is similar to our previous classes. And now this from here I'm calling the save selected restaurant method, which is defined in the Zomato API. And here I have the save selected restaurant. So it just receives the opportunity ID and the selected restaurant by the user, and then it would just update our opportunity record with the selected restaurant. And that's it. We are just updating the opportunity record over here, and finally returning the opportunity ID itself again.
Yeah, now we have one restaurant which is selected by the end user.
Yes, exactly. Now again, we are creating one more action which would invoke the Zomato find restaurant location Apex class, and as the input parameter, I'm passing the request ID or our opportunity ID, and as the output, I'm now creating a new slot called restaurant location, and it will be of type text, and finally saving it. So this slot will contain the address of the selected restaurant. Now let's have a look at the Zomato find restaurant location class. So here we have the Zomato find restaurant location class defined, and like other methods, it has an invocable method over here, and we are calling the find restaurant location method, which is defined in the Zomato API class. So let's have a look at that. So here we have our find restaurant location method in our Zomato API classes. and it's receiving the request ID as the input parameter, which is nothing other than our opportunity ID. And we are querying for the opportunity record, and we are also querying for the restaurant found customer object with respect to the opportunity ID. And finally, we are doing a check if the user selected restaurant is available in the restaurant found custom object. And if it's available, then we are collecting the address of that selected restaurant, and we are then passing that address to the bot so that we can display it to the end users.
Oh no, end user gets to know about the address of the restaurant and he can easily go there.
Yes. So now we have our final step over here. So I'm creating a new message, which would show the address location of the selected restaurant. So let me type a message. So you have chosen, and now I'm using merge field called selected restaurant to access my selected restaurant slot, which contains the user selected restaurant. And it's located at restaurant location, which is nothing but our another slot in which we are collecting the location of the selected restaurant.
This is where I like merge syntax. We can embed the values in our own statements there.
Yes, yes. And finally, enjoy your meal. Once that is done, I'm clicking on the save button. So my find a restaurant dialog is ready. Now, one more thing that I have to do here is, let me define the dialog intent over here. Why? Because so only in the welcome message, when a person or when a user enters a text, the bot has to understand or the context of the user's entered text and redirect accordingly. Okay. So that's why I'm using here or defining here the dialog intent for my find a restaurant dialog.
So definitely it's going to be very helpful where whatever may be the question from the end user, so we can identify the question, the context of the question, then invoke the respective dialogue from our instant bot, right?
Exactly.
Oh.
So let me show you my intent sets that I had created. So intent sets are nothing but to define like the possible ways your customer can like ask the bot input for a particular query or something like that. So
is it like a collection of questions that the customer probably ask?
Yes, the possible set of questions. So here I have created an Adhesia bot intent set. Let's have a look at that. You will get a much more clear picture.
Yeah.
So here I have two intents defined. One is the find a restaurant query, which I'll be using for my find a restaurant dialog. So let's have a look at that. As you can see that I have defined 20 possible customer inputs or 20 possible ways in which customers can ask questions to find a hotel or find a restaurant. It could be like maybe get me all the restaurants, search for a restaurant, or I have.
You need to think a lot in order to create this model, is it? So you need to think of what are the different ways a customer can ask the questions.
Yes, this might be a bit time consuming, and that's why I created it before.
Oh.
So minimum we need 20 customer inputs, and the more customer inputs, the better your intent can work.
Okay, so these are the minimum count. At least we need to have 20 different questions in order to create a custom intent, is it?
Yes, exactly. Okay. So I'll be using my find a restaurant queries intent set in here or in my find a restaurant dialog. So here in the dialog intent tab, I am now clicking on the add intent button over here, which would display all the available intent sets defined in my org. And for me now, it will be find a restaurant query.
Okay.
And finally, after selecting that, I'm clicking disable. Then one more thing is that for your Einstein bot to work with the dialog intents, you need to have at least two dialog intents defined in your bot.
Oh.
So for time being, I'm just creating a new dialog called find a restaurant review, and I'm defining a dialog intent that I had created before for um, no restaurant review intent set, and
Okay.
I'm using that. And finally, clicking on the save button.
Now, one question rings in my mind, Shruti. What happens if the customer asks a question which is not present in that list of intent questions?
If it asks for a question which is not there in the intent set, then maybe it will tell like sorry to understand, or if it found out some question that it could redirect to some other intent set, then it would do that.
Oh, okay.
Like if you had, like I have my no restaurant review queries intent set defined. So now I'm asking my bot, get me the review of XYZ restaurant.
Okay.
So it will redirect to this
Fine,
dialog.
yeah, got it.
And if there is nothing to be redirected, then the bot would say sorry, I didn't understand.
I don't understand that. Oh, that makes sense.
Yes. So now here we have two dialogues that we had created on the fly when we were configuring our find a restaurant dialog. So now let me just define these two dialogues. So in no restaurant found, let me add a message which would say, sorry, no restaurants found. And don't forget to save your dialogues. And now we have the no cuisines available pending. And here I am defining a message again, which would say, sorry, no cuisines are available. And finally, saving it. Yes, so once we have done these steps and we have defined our dialog intents, the next step will be to train our dialog intent. And for that, I'm going to the overview section over here.
Okay.
And here you can see intent management section. And here we have an option to train the bot.
Oh, so that will be available only once we train the bot and model is well trained and it can understand the question.
Yeah, once we train the bot, our bot will be ready to use with the dialog intents.
Perfect.
And finally, I'm clicking on training bot. And yes, so the status is new. This step usually takes 5 to 10 minutes. I don't think we have the scope for that. So once the training is completed, your next step will be to activate the bot by clicking over here. And then another thing that you will have to do is we have a section called chat buttons and automated invitation. And in that, you will have to define the bot which you are using. Okay. So let me just edit this. And here currently it's I'll come to the bottommost page, and let me now select the bot that I had created. That is my Edicia demo bot.
Okay.
And finally, click on the save button. Once when you have done that, you can then start using your bot after activating it.
I'm anxious to see. Once it's built in front of me, I just want to see how it goes.
Yes. So finally, we have come to the end of the presentation. Um, so there are few things to note
Okay.
that you might want to remember while using bots. So bots will never replace human agents. It's to help the human agents. And guess what? You have more features coming in the winter 19. And you know what? You can invoke uh, even from flows.
Okay.
And I should say that that's going to be awesome. Also, this is very important. The Einstein Bots ties itself to the live agent feature.
Oh, so this is really great to learn, Shruti. Maybe again on Safe Harbor. So it's going to be introduced in Winter 819, where we can invoke the bot from the flows itself. Is it?
Yes.
Oh, super. And Shruti, you know what? I've been working on Trailhead, and I love Trailhead. So Trailhead was my learning path right from the beginning. And do we have any trails or modules or projects that are related to the instant bot on Trailhead?
Yes, Satya, same here. I'm also a big fan of Trailhead. So here we have the
Oh, we have
a
yeah,
module
module.
for Einstein bots
That's
that
great.
you
That's
might
great.
want to refer.
Yeah, because I got a help from you, so now I understand, and I'm confident enough, at least to start with working on the instant bots, and definitely I'm going to try it this weekend. And yeah, this Tailhead module gives you all the fundamental information that is required in order to start working on the bots.
Yes. All right. So I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of the members and, of course, our Salesforce Ohana.
Thank you, Shruti. So I believe this is the time for the questions. Let us not waste too much of time talking about other things. I just want to take the questions from the users. Today we have many questions. Probably we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So in the next few minutes, let's try to answer the questions. So I have one question here. From a user. What is the difference between chatbot and instant bot? May I know how the instant chatbot is different from other chatbots? What makes it unique and different? I believe we have discussed something in the beginning of the presentation itself, but still you want to add some points here?
Yes, there is actually no difference between them. They are actually the same.
Okay. So one question here. Is snap-ins a mandatory thing to be created in order to make instant bots in action?
Actually, I created this snap-in so that I can easily click on the preview button and start demoing the Einstein bot.
Okay. One question related to the feature, whether it is available in common or not. So a question here says, is the instant bot available in Service Cloud, or there are any additional charges for this?
Actually, it's not available.
Okay, fine. You need to purchase that license and then,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Can I change user interface of the chatbot?
I don't think you have the provision to change the UI of the chatbot.
Okay. One interesting question here. What is the difference between live agent and chatbots?
So chatbots are like maybe you can say robots, and live agent is like in the name itself like a live agent. So like simple queries and all, it can be solved by the chatbots itself, like maybe canceling an order or maybe tracking an order. But when the queries become a bit more complex, uh, it's actually redirected to a live agent, which is like a person who's solving the questions. Like maybe if you take an example of some customer service, when you start chatting, you can see that transferred to our customer service executive. So it is that customer service executive who is the live agent.
Okay, so it's not the replacement of the service agent, but it's going to help the service agent to work, like, have some preliminary information, start working from there, is it?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Um, so, is it possible to select flow or anything else apart from invocable Apex in actions, which does not need coding? So I think this is regarding the flow feature, which is going to come up in Winter 19. Yeah, I think with Winter 19, you should be able to invoke your Einstein bots right from the flows there. Say there's a question, Shruti, or what if the input is like, I'm in Hyderabad? Will the bot filters and takes the city name?
Yes, you can actually define dialogue intents for that, like finding maybe when we are entering the city. I have not created a dialogue in that, so maybe you can define that also.
So one question even rings in my mind by seeing this question is like, what if I make some spelling mistake while typing the name of the city?
Yes, if you have defined an intent set, then definitely the Salesforce intent APIs would help us to figure out what it means. So, like, take for example, like when the bot asks me what has to be done, and I enter find a hotel or maybe find a restaurant with some wrong spelling, still the bot would figure out that uh, it's to find a restaurant thanks to the intent APIs by Salesforce.
Yeah. Customer can enter date in any format. How Instant can detect date from customer response? Do you have anything for date field?
Um, I think we do not have. I'm not sure, but I will have to check it out.
Okay. How can I add the bot to my website if I want to add? Can I do that?
Yes, actually you can do that. There's a code available in the button, so you just have to use that.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, we can use the code and then just embed it in my website and it should be able to work, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
fine. That's fine. Can I use REST API instead of invocable Apex in action? Can we use actions other than Apex class, like creating case directly from slot values? So do we need to definitely use the Apex code there?
Yes, actually, I am making call to the Zomato APIs to specific endpoints with few parameters, and that's why I'm defining my classes and invocable methods. So actually, in a single class, we cannot like have more than one invocable method, and that's why I had to create like a common class called Zomato API where I have all the methods defined
Okay.
which would do the call.
Nice. Someone asked, can we get this demo code?
Yeah, sure. I will soon
So
post it
yeah,
here.
this demo code will be available in a Git repository. We'll be posting the link in the same location from where you registered in few days. Yeah. And I have one question here. This is a simple question. Can I use Instant Bot on developer.org? Will Instant Bot works on developer.org?
Yes, it will work. I created my Einstein bot on a developer.
Okay. Can we use GIF or animation in bot says field? Like, can we use maps? Probably.
I think currently we cannot use
Maybe we can expect something in
in the
future,
future.
but
Yeah.
again, safe harbor there. Okay. One last question, Shruti. because keeping time in mind, in the interest of time. So, could you please help me understand where exactly NLP is used in this demo? For that matter, the capabilities of AI. I believe we have used intent there.
Yes, we have defined the Einstein intent sets. So behind the scenes, it's actually using the Salesforce intent APIs, and it finds the intent from the text that the user has entered.
Oh, with that answer, I think we are almost running out of time now. Thank you so much, Shruti. Now you made me even an instant bot developer. I was not much into Einstein, but yeah, now I'm confident enough that I can also develop. And so all our participants who have watched our webinar today should also be able to develop their first instant bots. Maybe they can spend some time in the weekend and do the instant bots. Thank you so much to be here and help me understand instant bot, Shruti.
Thank you, Satya and Shashank, for giving me this amazing opportunity.